The Weight We Carry by Mike Baines. Introduction. The work you're about to listen to is fiction, but it was drawn from the marrow of real experience. For more than a dozen years, I served as a federal mediator, moving from one hostile work environment to another, called in when people had reached a breaking point and could not find a way forward. Conflicts are rarely born of facts. They are born of blanks. Imagine you're walking down a hallway and see two co-workers at a water fountain. They stop talking when they notice you. After you walk on by, you glance back and see that they have resumed talking. You don't know what they were saying, but you suspect it was about you. A blank has been created, and you fill it with the worst possible explanation. Convinced you know their thoughts, you start acting differently. They notice a slight change in you, but they don't understand why. Now they have a blank. They fill theirs in with the worst possible scenario. What follows is a downward spiral, born not from truth, but from insecurity, fear, and imagination. Much of the weight we carry is exactly this: self-made, unnecessary, yet heavy enough to break a person. Have you, dear listener, ever filled in a blank like this? Maybe not in such a devastating way as you'll see here, but enough to leave you hurt, distracted, or estranged. This is where Chip's story begins. Chapter 1: The Best and the Worst. Chester Carlton Woods was good at what he did. Too good, some said. He didn't wear it like a badge, at least not anymore, but the results spoke for themselves. 8 years in the Bureau, and already the guy the rookies whispered about and the bosses bragged on. But tonight, as he sat parked in a government black SUV on the shoulder of Route 14, watching the porch light flicker on an old trailer wrapped in kudzu and broken promises, he didn't feel good at anything. The man he was here to arrest, an arms runner with ties to 3 militia cells and enough weaponry to outfit a battalion, was inside. Probably drunk. Probably armed. Definitely dangerous. Agents Jankowski and Hildebrand, by now, would have worked their way to the back of the trailer. That was his backup. Chip exhaled slowly and watched his breath fog the windshield. He checked his weapon. Checked it again. Then looked in the rearview mirror at the face that hadn't smiled in weeks. "I don't screw up," he said it loud, and then winced, because it wasn't entirely true. The job? No, he could do that in his sleep. But home? Marriage? His boys? He'd been messing that up for months now, maybe longer. And the worst part was he couldn't stop himself. He shut the engine off and stepped out into the cold. Gravel crunched under his boots. He would take the front door while the other 2 men would kick in the back door as soon as the action started. He wasn't alone, but he felt like it. The mission and the gnawing weight that had settled in his gut ever since that meeting with B.J. Jessup. Everyone knew. Everyone agreed. Everyone talked about him behind his back. He couldn't fake it. He couldn't shake it. He couldn't ignore it. He couldn't talk about it. B.J., his supervisor, mountain man in a blazer, told stories more than he gave directions. Chip used to think it was folksy leadership. Now he wasn't so sure because of that meeting. B.J. had shared a story about his coon dogs, one in particular, Jester. Jester was the best, did all the work. The rest of the dogs just followed and got in the way. Then Jester went off on a romantic retreat, and the rest of the pack stepped up, worked together, treed coons, acted like a real team. BJ beamed as he told it, said he thought he had something special. Then Chester came home and it all fell apart again. "You can be the best," BJ had said, leaning against the podium, "and still screw everybody else up." Everyone laughed. Everyone except Chip. Chip didn't laugh because he knew BJ was talking about him. Without a doubt, he knew it. And ever since then, he couldn't shake the thought that his wins made others weaker, that his success was a liability, that BJ was playing some kind of mind game where he would lift him up in private just to tear him down in public. Black as the pit from pole to pole. It was becoming impossible. What he overheard all those years ago coming from his parents' bedroom had been their prophecy of his failure. From that night on, he had kept it close to his consciousness. But he had been winning. And now, BJ had spoken this new prophecy. It was of his success. It would be no success. How much more could he bear? He pulled his coat tighter and approached the trailer, feet steady, heart pounding. The rusted screen door creaked as he opened it and knocked. He was no longer surprised when he felt the anticipation starting to rise inside of him. Anticipation that this guy might put up a good fight. Punching somebody seemed to be the only way he could get a moment's peace from what was going on in his head. Inside, the scuffle of feet, a curse, then silence. Chip took half a step back, drew his sidearm, and counted to 5. The door opened, just a crack. He moved fast, faster than the guy inside could react. The sound of Chip kicking in the front door brought his backup agents in through the back door. Faster than Chip wanted, it was over. Weapons down, wrists secured, and a set of choice words from the now handcuffed suspect trailing out behind them like cigarette smoke. An hour later, paperwork filed, suspect in lockup. Chip stood in the bureau parking lot with a manila folder in his hand and an ache in his chest. He should have felt satisfied. He didn't. He went over the night's work in his mind. It went just as he had planned it, without a hitch. Yes, he could have let one or both of the 2 less experienced agents go through the front door, and he could have entered through the back. If one of them had been injured, he would have held himself responsible. When they took the suspect into processing, he thought he heard Jankowski ask Hildebrand, "Why did we even need to be in on this?" Chip suspected Jankowski wanted Chip to hear the remark. No matter. When BJ starts giving Jankowski the assignments, he can run them the way he wants. It won't be his fault if it all goes south. He called home. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. Sammy's voice was still sweet, still warm, but the words felt like a recording of something that used to be true. He didn't leave a message. Instead, he climbed back in his SUV, stared at the steering wheel, and whispered, "I don't screw up." But he didn't believe it anymore.